What's up guys, it's Z here, welcome back to Yu-Gi-Oh! Deck of the Day. Today we're profiling the deck from the second god. We covered Slifer and now it's time to take a look at the new support that the Winged Dragon of Ra got in the Mega TINS of 2022. And I have to say that Konami really did some really great job this time with Egyptian God support, because we know that these are some of the hardest cards to make work in any type of deck. So we can at least be happy that Konami is trying to make them work at least a bit of as more of a consistent engine in other decks. And when it came to Slifer, I of course had to make it with a Dark Magician deck because it's just the most fitting theme for Yugi, because Slifer is the one he used the most in the anime. But now let's take a look at Ra. Ra is a different card because he did get a whole bunch of support just for himself in one of the legendary duelist sets, so I say he feels more like a complete archetype than the other two gods, but still they have to be splashed with other stuff again in order to be viable, so we need to make sure that we can make use of the most use out of these cards that we have. So now let's see how this deck can perform. So if you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss our upcoming content, and now let's get to the deck profile. So starting off with the god cards, we have 2 copies of the Winged Dragon of Ra. You need to play 2 copies of this card because there are a lot of cards in the deck that need to add this card from the deck in order to be able to function, so you need to have one at your deck at all times. So if you play only one and you draw it, then a lot of your cards become dead. So yeah, this card being at 2, it's not going to brick you too much, because anytime you are forced to play more than one god, there are a couple of other cards that can basically make the use out of them even when they're in your hand, but we'll get to that once we get to the spells. But again, this card is the OTK machine of the centuries, because you can basically pay all your life points aside from 100 to boost this card. The new effects basically make it even more powerful because they gave it the anime effect to absorb the attack points of the monster you tribute to summon it. So yeah, this card is really powerful, and going second, once you have other cards to basically bait your opponent's interruptions and stuff, you can one-shot them with the Wind Dragon of Ra. We play 1 copy of Immortal Phoenix. Now this card was never a good card because the conditions for this to be summoned were that it had to be in the graveyard and for Ra to be sent to the grave from the field. But because of the new spell card that we got in the Mega TINS, this card is actually very easy to summon, so we're going to play it because it's very powerful. By paying life points multiples of 1000, you send a monster in the field to the graveyard, and then during the end phase you special summon Sphere Mode from your hand, deck, or grave, ignoring and summoning conditions. So you basically get a monster that can be attacked and can be targeted, and next turn you're going to tag out for the Winged Dragon of Ra with 4k attack points from the deck. So these cards work tandem, so that's how you have to play them. And we also play 1 copy of Sphere Mode, again for the same reason. Immortal Phoenix summons this card, so you can always get access to it whenever you want. And since it summons this from the grave, you don't really need to play multiples, because we do play a normal summon in the deck. If you play a build of the deck where you don't rely on normal summoning for whatever reason, then of course you can play multiple copies of this card, because going second is a complot if it doesn't interact the rest of your deck. But in this particular build, I'm using a particular engine that I want to use in order to make really great use of one of the other cards that we have, so this is why we cannot play more than 1 copy of this card. We play 3 copies of Guardian Slime. Now Guardian Slime is one of the cards that we got in Legendary Duelist, and it's a really good card, but the problem is there was never a really good reason to make use out of this card turn 1, because in order for this card to summon itself, you have to take battle or effect damage. But once it's on the field, you can basically tag it out for an Egyptian God Slime, and then you're going to search a card, at least the Winged Dragon of Ra in its text. But again, the problem always was, how do you get this card on the field turn 1 without relying on your opponent to damage you? And when it came to the standards fact that you need to take damage by your own, there was always one particular engine that came to mind, and that's the Sunavalon engine. So next up we have 3 copies of Sunset Genius Lucky. Now this card gives you access to the combo. I'm pretty sure everyone knows by now what this card does because of the Rika decks that have been becoming very popular because of the Rika deck that won the WCQ. So yeah, we all know what this engine does, and you should know that it self-hurts. It has a spell card that basically when you summon a monster from the deck, you take damage, and that engine uses this to basically trigger the effect of Sunavalon, the link 1 monster Dorias, but we are using it to trigger Slime as well. The Guardian Slime, this is one of the most consistent ways to summon this card turn 1, and not only that, but it also gives you a very powerful engine that with just 1 card, it can basically do a lot. So yeah, I really enjoy this engine in this particular deck because it triggers a lot of the stuff and it covers the weaknesses of the deck it has, because the deck cannot really go first because the Winged Dragon of Ra, it's just for OTKs. It's not like Slifer where if you summon it turn 1, it can basically somewhat interrupt your opponent, but no, with this particular deck, you need to play other engines in order to make it better going first, and this is one of them. We play 1 copy of Sunset Twin. This card is the one that you're going to be summoning with a spell card you're searching with Dorias, so you can summon your Loki back from the graveyard to get more monsters on the field. This engine, not only does it get your Guardian Slime on the field, but it gets you a lot of monsters on the field tribute for Ra, so if you don't need them to go into something like Thrasher, you can just tribute them all away for Ra and basically OTK your opponent going second. Now, we know there are a lot of engines that have synergy with Sunavalons, and we are playing one of them. I am not playing Therions because I feel like Therions require more effort. We are playing Adventures. So we're playing Water Enchanters of the Temple. This card is just so free in this particular deck because you don't activate any effects of the monsters you normal summon. You're normal summoning a normal monster, so you're not going to be contradicting with it whatsoever, and this engine gives you a lot of power going first and going second because it has Draco back, it has the Omni Negate with Griffon Rider. It's just so good not to play in the deck. We play the one copy of Griffon Rider, of course, for the Omni Negate. When you're playing this engine, you just have to play this card. You can also throw in Illegal Knight if you feel like, but I don't feel like it's necessary, especially as long as this card is legal in the game, because the OCG banned Griffon Rider. If it ever happens to us as well, then yes, you might play the engine with Illegal Knight, but again, until that happens, the Omni Negate is just always going to be superior. Now let's move on to the spells. We have 3 copies of the True Sun God, the new card that we got in the Megatons. Now, this card is absolutely amazing. So when you activate this card, you can add a Winged Dragon of Ra or one card that mentions it from the deck of the hand. So you can basically add all the cards that can search the Ra, you can add the cards that can make Ra immune card effects or make him more powerful. You have a plethora of cards you can search this card. But this card is a continuous card, and it also has another effect. You can send this card from the field to the grave, or a Winged Dragon and send an Immortal Phoenix from your deck to the grave, and then send Ra from your monster zone to the graveyard, which will trigger Immortal Phoenix because you're first sending your Phoenix to the grave, and then you're sending your Ra to the graveyard, so your Phoenix is going to revive, he's going to blow up your opponent's board, and then he's going to tag out for Ra again. So this card, not only does it give more consistency to the deck, but it also applies one of the combos that the deck had but was never consistent enough to do with Mortal Phoenix, and now we can finally use that card as well in our deck. We play 3 copies of Ancient Chant. This is the card that adds the Winged Dragon of Ra from your deck to your hand, and it gives you an additional tribute summon for this card in your turn, and it's also going to boost Ra by the amount of attack points the monsters you tributed for him had, so you can basically make sure that your opponent is not going to have enough life points, because even if you have 8,000 life points, when you attack with Ra without this card, it's going to be at 79, so it's not like it's not K, but because of this card, you boost Ra even further, so you can basically make sure that he's a one-shot. We play 1 copy of Blaze Cannon. This is another card you can search with the True Sun God, and it's basically the Eagle booster of the deck. It's a card that makes the Ra unaffected by all other card effects. When you attack with Ra, you can tribute any number of other monsters you control that have not declared an attack yet to boost Ra even further by their attack points, and after damage calc, if Ra attack, you can send all monsters your opponent controls to the grave, so even if you do not destroy your opponent, you can basically make sure their board goes away with this card. So it's a really good card to search, because we do have so many ways to search cards that we need other cards in order to be able to search, because when you only have 2 targets with the True Sun God and Ancient Chant, you're going to have them in your hand, so you need this one additional target sometimes in order to be able to go for a game and make your hand better. We play 3 copies of Soul Crossing. This is the card that makes Ra not a break in the hand, because this card, going second, it can basically act as a Sphere Mode type of effect, tribute 3 monsters your opponent controls to summon Ra, or even going first, you can set this because it's a quick play, and when your opponent commits 3 monsters on the board, you can basically flip this card and then summon Ra on top of everything, and then your opponent loses 3 monsters, you get Ra on the board, and you basically just disrupted your opponent while getting your god on the field. So this card, it's not the greatest when you're playing in other particular versions of decks that play only 1 copy of the god, but in this particular deck, when we can search Ra with so many different ways, and we also play 2 copies, it's going to get a lot of value a lot of the times. We play 3 copies of Unexpected Die. We're getting to the part where we're focusing on the Sunavalon engine now, because this card gets your luck from the deck field, so you basically get a free body, and it doesn't eat your normal summon, so you can basically sometimes even normal summon an Enchantress on the field and go for even more tribute, because the problem with the Sunavalon stuff is that even the Link monsters, at least most of them, have 0 attack points, so if you need more bodies to tribute that are going to give Ra more attack points, they are not the greatest to tribute for Ra. Usually you are going to be tributing your Egyptian God Slime because it acts as 3 tributes and also has 3k attack points, but again, because of this card, you can sometimes normal summon something else to basically give you more power. We play 3 copies of Painful Decision to make the engine even more consistent, because again, you just need to see 1 normal monster. The moment you see 1 copy of it with any way, either it's Unexpected Die, hard drawing it, or going for Painful Decision, you're going to go for the combo. And we play 1 copy of 1 for 1. Opening this card with Water Enchantress feels so satisfying, because you can have so many pluses. You get your adventure packets and your Sunavalon package with just this card, so yeah, it's really good. We play 1 copy of Sunvine Sowing. This is the card that special summons Sunset Twin from the deck, and it also burns you for 1,000 points, and that's why you can trigger both your Dorias and your Guardian Slime to get your effects off, to get being able to search your Ra cards, being able to summon the Sunvine monsters from your extra deck to get more bodies on field. Yeah, this card being searchable as well. You only need 1 copy. It's not like you're going to be using this engine more than once, because you're not relying on the Sunavalon engine to grind you through a game. You just want to get you started. The rest of the game, you're going to be using your adventure stuff and your Ra stuff. We play Rite of Aramazir, of course. This card is amazing. You just get this. You basically get for full combo the Omni Negate, the Draco back. Everyone knows what this does by now. 1 copy of Fateful Adventure, 1 copy of Draco back the Rideable Dragon, 1 copy of Foolish Burial to basically send a Water Enchantress to the grave to give you another starter, and 1 copy of Call by the Grave because it's an amazing card. Now for the extra deck, we have 2 copies of Egyptian God Slime. This is the card you're going to be summoning on top of your Guardian Slime, and not only is it going to give you a search, but you get a big beater on the field field, but even on its own, it's really powerful. It redirects attacks on top of it, and also it can act as 3 tributes for Ra, so you don't even need to tribute the rest of your board. You can have all your plants on the field or your adventure cards on the field, just tribute this card. It will give Ra 3,000 more attack points than what we would have, and you also have the rest of the cards on your board. We have 2 copies of Dorias. The reason you play 2 copies is just in case the first one gets negated. You need to be able to access your engine during the later stages of the game if the first one gets asked, veilered, or anything, so this is why we play the second copy. We play 1 copy of Melias. This is the one that's going to bring back your normal monster and is going to give your Thrasher more attack points and more attacks. We play 1 copy of Sunvine Healer. This is a card that helps you win in time as well because it gives you life points equal to the markers it points to. You're always going to be getting 300 life points with this card. It's usually used in plant decks to trigger Jasmine, but in this particular version, you just play this particular card because after you take the 1000 damage by Sunvine Sowing, you summon this to basically have more life points than your opponents, and it can also give Ra just a tiny bit more attack points when you summon it, which you can never know how important it can be. We play 1 copy of Thrasher. This is the beater of the deck. When you summon this card with Melias, it's going to be at 3200 attack points, and it's also going to attack twice because you have Melias and Dorias on the field, so you have 2 Sunavalon monsters that point to each other, so you're going to be attacking twice with this card, and also when it destroys a monster by battle, you're going to steal it and put it under Melias' marker so you can tribute it for Ra later. We play 1 copy of Bengalancer. This is the card that you're going to be summoning by using your Thrasher and your Melias. If you don't successfully OTK your opponent, it's an interruption you can summon, which is basically you can bounce cards your opponent controls on the field. You can also play the Sunavalon Link 4, but the problem is that it forces you to also play another card in the main deck, which I'm not a big fan of because you don't really need to commit space for interruptions when you have extra deck monsters like this, which they can interrupt your opponent on their own. We play 1 copy of Alsa the Earth Charmer. You do play the Charmers that you can summon. Unfortunately, you cannot summon Dark, but you can summon the Earth and the Water, so we're going to be playing them just in case your opponent has something good in the grave to steal. So yeah, 1 copy of Alsa and 1 copy of Area the Water Charmer because of cards like Guardian Slime and Water Enchantress. And we do play some Xyz monsters. We play 1 copy of Assembled Nightingale because you know that we can use Unexpected Die and then potentially normal summon a second Lucky. So going second, having 2 level 1s, we all know that this is a really good board breaking strategy you can use in any deck that can summon it, like Drytron, or of course Litterlusk if you're playing the actual deck. But in this deck, you can do it too. So you summon this card, you attack directly. Main phase 2, you summon on top of her the 1 copy of Downer Magician, and then you summon the 1 copy of Zeus on top of her to basically have 2 times the effect of Zeus to basically destroy your opponent's board. And the last 2 monster is 1 copy of Gustav Max because we do play level 10s in the deck with cards like Guardian Slime, Ra, Egyptian God Slime. Again, if you fail to OTK, this card might be able to do the finishing blow, or if you know that your opponent has a lot of monsters on the field you can run over, you can summon this card, burn, and then summon the 1 copy of Liebe on top of it, and basically kill your opponent this way if you know that you're not going to be able to attack with Ra for game. So yep, that's the deck, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. This is one of the decks that basically I could consider the most competitive version of a God deck you can play because of how many good cards this deck can play, consistency with all the other cards that you can run, and of course we all know that the Adventure package alone or the Sunavalon package alone, they can carry duels on their own, so when you have Ra on top of it, you basically give yourself really good going second power. It's a really fun strategy you can use. It's actually competitive enough for a God deck in my opinion because you would never expect a deck like this to be at least decent, but this deck can actually win some games. So yeah, I feel like it's one of the best decks we have so far, and hopefully with future support, Konami can make the God cards even more powerful so we can use them maybe all together sometime, or just a clean archetype we will not have to use any other engines to support. So yep, that's the deck, guys. If you enjoyed it, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss our upcoming videos, and we'll see you next time.